Welcome back to the Football Kingdom podcast. Hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know I did. Got a lot to get into this weekend. As always, we'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs went on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders and were able to come out victorious by a score of 31-17. And Tyler, this was an interesting game because it kind of seemed shaky and a little bit in doubt at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, this was a fun game when it was over. That first quarter and a half, I'm like, the Chiefs have major problems. But again, at the same time, the whole time I'm thinking this is the same basic core team that came back on the Texans in the playoffs and have came back so many times. Don't panic. It's going to be okay. But still, there's some serious problems that they've never had in the past. But by the end of the game, you're like, it's all good. Everything's fine. Because it was like doomsday. It felt so bad for the Raiders to show up out of nowhere and just dominate. I mean, it was that bad where, yeah, those first two touchdowns, like the Chiefs had no answers. Like they just were not showing up. It was kind of scary, but you're still in the back of your mind. You're like, man, these guys overcame much worse than this. So you always have that glimmer of hope. So it's like, you're not like, down in the dumps and depressed, but yeah, it was still very, very kind of shocking there. But yeah, they came back, had quite honestly, a get right game. Like they really found themselves, I think, sitting a couple guys and the injuries to the receivers really helped kind of gel the passing game, because clearly the running game is fine. Passing game, I think, really found themselves because they didn't have so many mouths to feed, perhaps. So maybe that was an actual positive.
Yeah, one thing for me that was a big takeaway was we've been talking about it all season long and just kind of waiting for Rashee Rice to break out because we see the potential. We like some of the things that he's been able to do, and this was the Rashee Rice game. 8 catches, 107 yards, and a big touchdown. And it's encouraging to me because now, you've seen teams' defenses pretty much just take Travis Kelce off the table by doubling him and tripling him. And now I'm hoping that people are going to go, oh, we need to keep an eye on this Rashee Rice guy, and maybe it'll open up some paths for Travis Kelce to be even more productive than he already has been this season.
Yeah, there was a couple times, and I tweeted this, that the last handful of games where they really shut down Travis Kelce, I'm thinking you just see him, and he has 2 defenders on each shoulder, and he's just standing there like, I'm good. Because he's like, well, I'm going to take up 2 defenders. These other guys got to make plays, which is true. That's what they're supposed to do. I mean, if they're just going to blatantly, like, we're literally going to just sit on either side of you and just you're out of this play. The rest of your team has to make plays. The problem with that is nobody was making catches. This game, everybody, there was just only, well, I don't even know. I don't think there was. It looks like there was only like 2 drops.
Yeah, this
the
is
entire game. So it's a wonder when people actually catch the ball, what kind of game the Chiefs have. I mean, that alone made the difference.
Yeah, we say all that about Travis Kelce, and he had 91 yards receiving this game, but you had
Marquez catches.
Yeah, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He had 1 catch for a negative yard. Made a big block for Rashee Rice on that touchdown, though. And Justin Watson, he was drop king as well last week. He had a pretty awesome touchdown. Got absolutely leveled by a defender in the end zone. Just popped up and caught the touchdown. So,
right,
like to see the toughness and the grit there. And I'm hoping that the Chiefs can really feel good about the way that they played from a skill position standpoint heading into Green Bay on Sunday, because this isn't the same Green Bay team from 3 or 4 weeks ago. This is a Green Bay team that's really starting to play its best football of the season. So going into Vegas and kind of getting right off of that bad Eagles loss, you feel good going into that primetime game.
Yeah, and MVS, he had another really good play that's like a blocking play, basically, when they went to Kelsey twice in a row. He had that ridiculous dime to Kelsey that was over two defenders. I mean, it literally, like, it looked like it touched the defender's helmet, and Kelsey caught it in stride, like over his own shoulder. It was the most ridiculous throw. There's an angle behind Mahomes. It's not like an all 22, but it's kind of like an above field view. And I mean, it's just like amazing the precision that he threw that pass to Kelsey. And then they did the flea flicker play, which the defense bid on MVS going to the end zone, but it was to Kelsey midfield, and that's what that was either the first or second, or no, that may have been the third touchdown drive in a row, and that's what really put this game, apart of like, this is the actual get right game, because that's not like fake. This isn't like a bad, Raiders team or whatever. Like the team is actually, finally starting to get on the same page, and you're actually seeing change that we've like, okay, these guys are not this bad. We just need to stop with the drops. And yeah, having 3 touchdown drives in a row, those types of plays, that's kind of who the Chiefs need to be. And that you saw it. I mean, we're not talking big explosive plays. They had some pretty large chunk plays that they haven't really had, to call on, in the past, especially this past year or maybe even 2. But, still chunk plays, just little bitty, just regular football. Like I said last week, of like, just make regular plays and the team will be just fine.
Yeah, I want to jump over to the defensive side of the ball. Early on, it seemed like the Raiders had the defense figured out. That Raiders offense was in rhythm and just kind of picking the Chiefs apart on that first drive that they scored. And the second drive, was it? I think it was the second drive. The Raiders were driving. Chiefs hadn't really been able to make a stop, and Chiefs stopped the Raiders on 4th and 1, I believe, and the Raiders elected to kick.
Oh yeah,
and
he chunked it.
It was a 30-yard field goal attempt, and Kevin Harlan absolutely jinxed him.
Yeah,
Carlson, and he said it was like 25 straight from 30 yards or less, or something like that. And
yeah.
But for me, it was less about missing the kick and more about, why are you not going for it if you're the Raiders there? The Chiefs had not really been able to stop you to that point in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But and then on top of that, the other touchdown that the Chiefs gave up in the second quarter to Josh Jacobs was just a big explosive play. It was just one and done, essentially.
Yeah, that was a 63-yard run, that was a weird one too. You don't see too many. I saw a lot of those types of plays in the 90s. You don't really see that anymore, but like every defender was up on the line and there was just no secondary. There was like just one safety back, and then he's just gone. Like you don't really see, run plays break out like that anymore, but that again was like another part of like 14-0 where you're just like, oh my God, like this team, what is going on? And
but then turned around. Vintage Chiefs, you go into the half, game's tied, you have a chance to double dip in the third. And I mean, at that point, I felt really comfortable as a Chiefs fan. I was like, okay, the defense is adjusted. The offense seems to be in rhythm. And it's the Raiders. So,
yeah. That's why it was so maybe a little bit more doomsday-ish in my mind. I was like, man, like you got to show up for Raider week here. But yeah, I mean Chris Jones showed out. Karlaftis got, a game-ending sack. The game was basically over there, but he kind of dapped up his old teammate, like as he was sacking him. Like
Yeah.
he was basically like on top of the dude. It was just like, hey man, I got you. But yeah, they were old college
Yeah.
teammates.
Yep. I think that was the lone sack for the Chiefs this week, but big win, important win coming off of a loss against Philly. It kept you in the race for that 1 seed. It also kept you away from, this is a weird thing to say, but it kept you away from the Broncos. The Broncos they're winners of 5 straight, and
Yeah.
the last thing you need is for the Broncos to feel like they can catch you. So big important win, especially inside the division. But a lot of games. Obviously, Thanksgiving was this weekend, and we are grateful to be given 3 games to watch. Obviously, that early game every year is the Lions hosting whoever, and this year the Packers came to town, and Packers are. I said it earlier. They're playing really good football. They are winners of 2 straight. They beat the Chargers the week prior, and then came into Detroit, and I mean, uh, the defense looked good. Jordan Love looked, I think, as good as he's looked in his entire career. And the Packers are 5-6 and really setting themselves up to be a wild card contender in a bad NFC.
Yeah, and I mean, they were unstoppable in the first quarter. We were literally eating Thanksgiving dinner while this was happening. And I'm like looking into the living room, like seeing like, oh, another touchdown. There goes another giant play, and they kind of sleptwalked through the rest, but they did what they needed to do. They kind of let the Lions back into it, um, which is with Dan Campbell, that's kind of their kind of forte. But yeah, they kind of almost gave that game away, but
It felt kind of, to me, it felt like kind of garbage time ish. Like,
it was, but it was still like you got to at least throw up maybe another score. But no, yeah, you're right. The Packers, you know, it's I'm kind of torn because you don't want the Packers to have yet another awesome QB. You're just like, come on now. Like these guys, they can sit on the sidelines for a little bit, but I mean, I really like Jordan Love. I like watching him play. I hope he does do good, strangely. So I don't like before doing the podcast, I haven't really wanted to see other teams succeed. It's like I just want the Chiefs to be good and like win Super Bowls. And now it's like, yeah, you look at the league a little bit differently, and yeah, seeing Jordan Love like be awesome. Like I kind of do want him to be good and um actually competitive. Especially with Mahomes back and forth because we've kind of played those guys a lot recently, and yeah, that's actually interesting with their um with them trying to get above the Vikings because the Vikings have kind of fallen off as well.
yeah, the Vikings lost to the Bears this week.
Yeah, that to me is people have been questioning like, man, just as soon as Josh Dobbs like gets, into a system, he starts sucking again. It's like he just needs to transfer to another team and just like win 5 games and then transfer again or something. But I don't really see them falling off a cliff there. But yeah, I don't know. In that division in the NFC, I don't believe the Packers have much of a shot for the wild card unless other teams start to really fall off. But yeah, I mean, the Lions are ahead enough there. They can kind of stand to lose this game, but
Cowboys also hosted a game, as they do every Thanksgiving, against the Washington Commanders, and this game just was an absolute blowout. The Cowboys pretty much had their way in every aspect of the game. Dak Prescott looked great, and just a rough day if you're Washington.
Yeah, I didn't watch a ton of this. We were kind of cleaning up and getting ready to go, but every time I looked, it was another giant play, and it was incredibly impressive. It's what they do best at home, like we said last week against the Panthers. They just totally dominate teams at home, and it was really cool to see. But again, yeah, the Commanders didn't really put up much of a fight, and other than that, I mean, I all I have to say is like, yeah, the Cowboys really. That's kind of the talk right now is like Cowboys really haven't beat anybody. They beat Giants, Jets, Patriots, Chargers, Rams, Giants, Panthers. They lost to the Eagles, lost to the Niners, lost to the Cardinals. So they're still one of them teams where if they hadn't had their kind of past where they just kind of, fall off in the playoffs, not really going to believe it, and probably until another 2 weeks when they play the Eagles, kind of see how they're looking at the end of the season.
Yeah, they're a team that it'll be it'll be fun while it lasts. So something really cool that happened was Deron Bland
Yeah.
set the NFL record for pick sixes in a season with his fifth of the year with many games to go.
Right.
So he has a chance to add to that total, which would be amazing.
There was a really cool clip of Dan Campbell, their DC, like up in the booth, just
Oh,
like jumping. Do you see that?
yeah, Dan Quinn. Yeah.
Dan Quinn's my bad.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Like that's like a feel good moment of like your coach is just like, that's my guy. Like go do the thing, man. Like go set a an all time record that nobody's ever done before. And he's on my team, like
Mm.
I'm his coach, and like he couldn't be more proud of the dude.
Yeah. The nightcap, we talked about this one last week. Seattle, coming off of a bad loss against the Rams, really needed to take care of business against the 49ers. I felt like they could do it. You were on the side of the Niners winning that, and you were right. Geno Smith was bad. The Seahawks were bad. They've now dropped two straight, 6-5. They are headed in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I was gonna, give you a little bit of a pass because Gino was very doubtful for this game, and I had forgotten about that when you were like, I've got the I got the Seahawks here, and I was like, I don't see it, man. I think the Niners are too hot right now, and with Gino was probably still playing hurt with whatever kind of arm issue I think he had. Yeah, I didn't really see that coming to pass.
Yep. So, a good trio of games for Thanksgiving. And for the first time ever, we had a game on Black Friday presented by Amazon, or not presented, whatever. It was on Amazon. That's what I know. Amazon
For
Prime.
free.
Jets hosting the Dolphins, and all I really have to say about this game is the Jets threw a pick six on a Hail Mary.
Mm,
The Jets stink. It doesn't matter who's
doesn't
their
matter.
quarterback, unless his name's Aaron Rodgers. The Jets just stink.
Yeah, they're starting Tim Boyle, who is Aaron Rodgers' friend, basically. And that's what kind of sucks for like Robert Saleh. I don't know if I like Saleh or not. I think he's just kind of stuck, and he's like, man, this would not be happening if Rodgers didn't get hurt on the fourth play of the year. But I think they they kind of put too much trust. They kind of let him be the GM, as it were, and now and they I think Alan Lazard was a healthy scratch, and they're paying him double digit, money. It's like this is that's a problem.
It must be terrible to be a Jets fan, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the worst. To get Aaron Rodgers and you're like, man, this guy, he's super annoying and he's one of those guys, but he's also really good. And it's just the same story. It's like a Browns type fan base.
Yep. Yeah, you have two teams in your city with the Giants and the Jets, and you are willingly You're willingly a Jets fan. Not that the Giants are much better right now, but at least
Right.
you can look back, not too far and see success. Where the Jets is just like they've had 57 quarterbacks in the last 5 years. But anyway, enough about bad teams. Uh, really fun matchup and a matchup that I think is going to be a must watch in the future. Houston Texans, Jacksonville Jaguars. AFC South was on the line in this game, and Houston was down early and were able to rally back and had a chance to tie the game. It was left up to the leg of Matt Amendola, old friend alert, and he had to kick a 58-yarder. I believe his career high was like 49 yards or something like that, and he was just short. He put it right off the crossbar, and Jacksonville was able to come away with the victory on the road.
Yeah, this was a fun game too, but I mean, the Texans, I think too little too late. They scored one touchdown per quarter there to bring it to 21, but yeah, they just kind of ran out of gas. I think they had some mistakes as well. I don't remember if they had a fumble or something, but I mean, yeah, CJ Stroud still playing out of his mind, but yeah, I feel like that there was so much momentum with the Texans. I really thought they were going to steal this one, but yeah, I don't really remember what happened at the end of that game, but something kind of they kind of fell short there because I really thought they had the momentum and everything kind of going their way, but
Yeah, just a really long kick, a hard kick for anybody to make. But the Texans, man, CJ Stroud is so good. He's pretty much got Rookie of the Year locked, and D'Amico Ryan's probably Coach of the Year. They're going to be fun, and I'm glad because it looked like Jacksonville is just going to roll for years to come. But Texans are a surprise, and even the Colts are kind of a surprise. They're not great by any means, but they've won. They have the same record as Houston, with a lot of different situations happening over there. Jonathan Taylor just
right.
went down. We'll see how that goes for them.
Mm.
But interesting. If you would have told me that the Colts and Texans would both have winning records this late into the season, I would have said you're crazy. So
That's a
glad
good
to
point. You're
see
not wrong.
my favorite game of the week this week, and we kind of when we previewed it last week, Bills and Eagles. Bills had a lot to prove this week. Obviously, fired their OC a couple weeks ago and had a good week against the Jets last week, but playing a really, really good Eagles team who clearly are the team to beat in the NFL. Jalen Hurts is the front runner for the MVP. He showed that again this week. But yeah, Bills again, it's kind of their mantra is give everything we have and still come up short. That's kind of their thing. Josh Allen he looked really good. He threw a really critical interception late in the game that opened the door for Philly, but a really fun back and forth. And again, came down to the leg of the kicker for the Eagles, Jake Elliott, 59-yarder in the terrible conditions. He was able to hit it and send the game into OT where the Eagles walked it off.
That was an all-time kick, 59 yards. Even in even in those conditions, I'm like, I mean, it's still at home, so he kind of should know, and be able to aim that kick like he did. But in those conditions and that kind of pressure that was like phenomenal. This one was fun too because that you're like, I don't know who to root for because you're like, I don't want the Bills to surge back and have a winning record, and they're now a problem as they always are for the Chiefs. And I'm like, does it really matter if the Eagles win this game at this point? Probably not.
I was all Eagles. this game because
Right.
it legitimately has
Yeah.
no bearing on the Chiefs at this point.
Yeah.
So,
They're so far up on the NFC side. It's like
yeah,
okay, they'll be 9-2. It's like I don't think that's going to change anything for them.
yeah,
So I
and
think it's a lot better for the Bills to win this.
yeah, no, I for me it was the Eagles need to win this because I don't want the Bills to think that they have a chance, and especially
Right.
don't want them to carry momentum heading into a matchup against the Chiefs in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and they made some mistakes too. It was frustrating too. There was a lot of talk about the Eagles like penalties. Like then they just I mean they had like I don't know, 3 penalties when they played the Chiefs or something and they barely had any penalties in this game. And they're like 6th least penalized team in the league. I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything. It's just it's frustrating that there's clearly penalties out there that just are not being called and they're just not, they're just not getting them, which, helps them. I mean, it's not to say that they're not clearly
Yeah,
the best team in the league. It's not going to change a whole lot, but at key points it can, hinder teams, especially the Bills when they could have called some timeouts and or just ran different plays. I mean, they had Josh Allen, who is basically unstoppable, and they're kicking field goals when they shouldn't be. And um, it's funny too because when he kicked that 49-yard to go to OT, both there's like a split screen of Jalen and Jason Kelsey, and they look disappointed and shaking their head because they both know their teams they're better than this. They shouldn't have to be kicking a field goal to go into OT. Because so many people are like, "What is that reaction?" And I'm like, "That's what it is. Like these guys know they should not have even been here. They shouldn't be having to hope and pray for this field goal to take them to OT for a chance to win. It's like they made mistakes. They both know it. I mean, Kelsey had like two or three penalties I think called on him, in that game for false starts or something like that. And yeah, they know they're better than that, and that's that is what's scary about that team.
yeah, and the Bills got the ball first in OT, and they really had a chance to win. But I don't know
Right.
if it was Gabe Davis in the wrong spot, or if Josh Allen threw it to the wrong spot, or what happened there. But clearly, a miscommunication in the end that forced the Bills to kick a field goal and give the Eagles a chance to go and win it. And with that win, the Eagles improved to 10-1. Again, clearly the best team in the NFL, team to beat. Doesn't matter who they play. Eagles have a pretty dang good chance of coming away victorious. Sunday Night Football. Baltimore played the terrible Chargers, and this game was kind of a dud for me. Like it was like kind of interesting for a while, but then the Chargers are just they're a hard team to watch, and Ravens won on the road 20-10. Brandon Staley still has a job somehow. You know who doesn't have a job though, Tyler? Former Carolina Panthers head coach Frank Reich. Gone. Not even a season into his time in Carolina. What's your thoughts there? Too early?
Well, definitely. He outla or not even
Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer lasted like 13 games. You know what I mean? And he only lasted 11. This is like the record for like a coach not lasting 11 games in like 40 years. That's like the last time like a coach and for him to get fired back to back like one and dones, with what was it, the Colts?
Yeah, he was with the Colts. He got fired midseason by the Colts last season.
Yeah, and then to not even make, week 12 or whatever, I guess 11 games or whatever, and then yeah, and I think this all goes back to David Tepper, the owner, who has I think he's had like 3 head coaches in the past 5 years. And I guess he has like a soccer team or something too, which he's fired like 2 or 3 coaches on that team as well.
Yeah.
It's like this guy, and there's been all this talk about how he's been trying to run everything in the background, and Frank Reich's like just basically like keeping the peace and being almost a yes man, but he's like, if I say anything, he's gonna fire me anyway. So he's like, well, he's had a lot of input and this and that, and he's basically saying like, yeah, this guy's basically telling me what to do, and then he
Yeah.
just fires the guy. It's like this sucks for their fan base because you
No,
can't escape an owner like that.
this is completely awful. And there was thoughts that Bryce Young was David Tepper's guy, Frank Reich wanted CJ Stroud, but
Yikes.
it if it just it's dumb. I've like firing a coach unless you have an Urban Meyer situation where it's like, okay, this guy is just
Sure.
actually really bad for our locker room, or you have Nathaniel Hackett where you're like, you just know that he doesn't have it. But Frank Reich has a resume, not a great
Hmm.
resume, but you can see kind of what he's done. I mean, he was part of the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl run in 2017. He was, you know, served a bad hand in Indy. He had Andrew Luck, who walked away from the game, was able to do something with Phillip Rivers. Of course, you could make an argument that Nick Sirianni is responsible for that because he was the OC at the time. But anyway, Frank Reich, like he's probably not going to get a head coaching job again, for starters, and maybe he shouldn't. But I just, you got a rookie QB, you got a first year head coach. There's zero talent on that roster.
Right.
What are you supposed to do? Is it frustration that you're not being productive and you see what's happening in Houston and you're like, why is that not happening here? Clearly an impatient owner, but if I'm a head coaching candidate, I'm not sure if I want to go to Carolina because I don't know, number one, if I'm going to have any say in anything that happens in that organization, and number two, if I'm going to have any sort of job security. So Carolina's a mess, and they're gonna. I I think it's gonna be a rough few years, and I feel really bad for Bryce Young.
Yeah, that is a really hard. I mean, somebody's going to take that job. You're going to get paid a 4-year, head coach salary, and somebody's going to get it. But who wants that job? You make a excellent point of that is a rough, place to go in and try to coach a team because he's probably going to fire the GM, by the off season or something, and you're starting all over yet again. And the CJ Stroud thing too. It's tough to say. I don't think that CJ Stroud would be as good. I don't think we'd be looking at him the same because it's a much weaker offensive line. Doesn't have as many weapons. He doesn't have Tank Dell and the weapons that he has in Texas. So I don't know. I or Houston, but yeah, I don't think you can really look at it that way. This isn't like a Trubisky versus Mahomes, scenario where it's like totally you clearly chose the wrong QB, but yeah, you already said it all. You can't really be firing your head coaches 11 games in. Like you need time to build a team.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's an unfortunate situation for Carolina, who's clearly having an awful season, and I don't know if it really gets better from here. But oof, that's that's rough. I want to look ahead to next week. Some of the kind of key matchups that are going to be played. One that's actually interesting to me, and I didn't really know that I was going to be saying that at this point in the season, but Texans and Broncos. I think, like we've already talked, the Texans have been really fun to watch, and the Broncos are the hottest team in football. So I'm actually kind of intrigued by Texans Broncos.
Yeah, they're on a 5-game winning streak. I mean, no one would have guessed that this is. We'll talk a little Broncos here because I mean, they had a 70 burger dropped on them by the Dolphins.
The talk
You
was
know?
gonna be that they were gonna have a fire sale at the trade deadline too.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, right.
look at them now.
Yeah, they can't be stopped. And I mean, the other thing about I thought about this throughout this week, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, still, I've watched a couple of those games because there was the Monday night with the Bills, Manning cast, and there was some other game that I watched of theirs. But I'm still like, I mean, if you watch the games, they're still not like a scary team. Like they're almost barely in some of these games, and they make a lot of mistakes. They don't have an explosive offense. I just think, probably Sean Payton is a really good, coach, and overall the team, like they've obviously won 5 games in a row, but it's the you pass the eye test for me, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think they're like this crazy like world beater, team, but yeah, I think they're still gonna, put up a really good game with the Texans with a rookie CJ Stroud. Maybe he blows them out, or who knows, but yeah, that's interesting. I didn't see that game, and yeah, you're right. That'll be a good one.
Yeah. Um, Probably the most I I'm very excited for this matchup. The two best teams in the NFC on Sunday afternoon, Eagles and 49ers. And I mean, this is an NFC championship preview, probably.
Definitely. Yeah, that'll be, what is that, at Eagles?
Yep. I'm excited for it. Because
That
last year, in the NFC Championship game, Brock Purdy got hurt, and it kind of ended up being an uncompetitive game
Oh
in
yeah.
favor of the Eagles. So, man, this is there's gonna be a lot of eyes on this one because it's important.
I don't really remember, but I feel like it was actually a game too. Like Purdy was actually looking good. I don't remember, but yeah, that should be a really fun one.
Yeah, and to close us out, we've already talked about it a little bit, but Chiefs go on the road on Sunday Night Football into Green Bay and play a Green Bay team that it looks really good, and it's not going to be just a walk in the park for the Chiefs. I think it's going to be uh, a fairly interesting and competitive matchup.
Yeah, you still got McKinnon will probably both Kinnon and Tony will probably still be out. But again, after what we saw, I think we've kind of figured out who the starters are. And I mean, he targeted Rashid Rice 10 times over everybody else. I mean, Kelsey got 7 targets and everybody else was, 3 or 4 times. So yeah, that should be a pretty good one. I think that'll be yeah, they have the Chiefs at, yeah, 6.5 points. So that's probably what'll happen if the Chiefs kind of be who they are, dominating defense. Maybe put the Packers back to where they've been in the past couple weeks, or prior to the last couple weeks.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs. I think maybe I'll be a fool, but I really felt like the wide receivers or the offense kind of took a step forward. I was just again looking back at the Raiders game. I was very happy to see them be able to overcome a 2-score deficit. That's something that I feel like the Chiefs needed to see that they could do, along with everybody that watches the Chiefs. So, be a fun matchup on the road. But with that, that's all we have for this week, and we'll see you next time.